Hey, welcome to Mom Master University. Class is in session, and in this series, we are talking about Jezebel. Now, I don't know what you know about Jezebel, but I'm going to share some things that are going to be so enlightening for you in this series. First of all, who was Jezebel? What is a Jezebel spirit? How do you recognize it? How do you prevent it from operating in your life? And how do you know if you have fallen prey to it already? This is going to be powerful. Now, don't miss a minute of this series because what you don't know could be hurting you. Welcome to Mom Mastery University, the education every mom should have had, but didn't. I'm Hannah Keeley, America's #1 mom coach, and class is now in session. All right, so welcome to Mom Master University. We're talking about Jezebel. I'm Hannah Keeley. I'm going to be your coach throughout this series. We have a 4-part series this time, and this is going to be so powerful for you. I truly believe if you really lean in and get this content, what God has revealed to me through studying this, and what I'm bringing to you, I totally believe it's going to change your life. It's going to change your life. It's going to change your future. It's going to reduce your stress. It's going to bump up your power. So who doesn't want that, right? So we're talking about Jezebel. And this first part, we're talking about the secret seduction. Now, this is how the enemy loves to operate. He loves to operate in secret, right? If he can keep it under the radar, then you're not even noticing what he's doing in your life. And all of a sudden, you've created pain, you've created lack, you've created stress in your life. That's all avoidable, but we need to know how it works to bring us to this place where we're like, how did I even get here? So that's what we're talking about. First of all, who was Jezebel? Well, Jezebel is probably best known for being the worst woman in the Bible in history. She was the worst. There were some bad women, right? She was queen of them. Why was she so bad? Because she coerced people. She manipulated. She controlled. She was narcissistic. She was very aggressive. She was also an idol worshiper. And she worshiped Baal. She was raised in a house where they worshiped Baal. So she learned it as a child. Yikes. And then went on to marry King Ahab. She became queen and would establish Baal as the religion. So everyone had to worship Baal. So she was a pretty corrupt character. But the reason we talk about the Jezebel spirit is we see the spirit still in operation today. It can be operating in you. It can be operating in people around you. And if you recognize it, you know how to avoid it and you know how to handle it. Okay, so we need to talk about this. I want to share with you 1 Kings 16. And this is basically one of the first, when Jezebel really enters the picture. So it says, in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, the son of Omri, began to reign over Israel. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. I want you to take note of that. Ahab did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. Pretty bad character. And then it says, as it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he took for his wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians. So you see the daughter of Ethbaal, it already shows that the family was worshiping Baal. It was their family religion. And went and served Baal and worshipped him. He erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. And Ahab made an Asherah. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. So here's Ahab, who did more evil than any other king before him, married to Jezebel, who did more evil than any queen. So we're talking about Mr. and Miss Evil incarnate, right? So now we have to understand, all right, why were they so evil and how is this evil still being represented today that could potentially tempt us and control us? Now, why was Ahab so evil? I'm going to share with you something that had a lot to do with his union with Jezebel. So a lot of times the evil things that people do, or the evil things that we do, is only because we come into agreement with another spirit, with another philosophy, with another, really with anything that is outside of the will of God. We come into agreement with it. So he came into covenant with Jezebel, which caused him to do more evil than anyone who ever came before him. And we also do the same thing. We come into agreement with things around us, with ideas around us, and then it causes us to now go and do evil. And we don't even realize it. So check this out. This is who she was. This is who Jezebel was. And she worked by manipulation. Now, that is how the enemy works today. And here's the deal. He works through people. Just like the enemy was working through Jezebel, this Jezebel spirit also works through people. It could even be working in you to cause you to do evil. And when we say evil, it's not like you're like maliciously planning like horrible things for other people. Evil just means outside of the will of God. It could be something as simple as, you know what, I don't need to tithe this money. I can just talk back to my husband. I don't need to be compassionate right now. I need to, you know what, this little sin is okay. Now, you see, it's like society would say, well, that's not evil. But we have to get a clear understanding of what sin is. Sin is anything that operates outside of God's will for you, the best for you. That's what sin is. So we also see, I'm going to show you similarities here. We also see Jezebel showing up in 1 Kings 19, and this is very important, so I'm going to read this to you as well. It says, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah, so this was right after Elijah had like killed all these Baal priests and had really demonstrated the glory of God. And well, Ahab wasn't too happy about it, and neither was Jezebel. So Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. And this is starting in verse 19 of 1 Kings 19, and how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a message unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as one of them by tomorrow about this time. It's like, okay, what you did to those prophets, those Baal priests, I'm going to do the same thing to you by tomorrow at this time. And when he saw that, he saw the message, he arose and went for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. And he himself went into a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die. And he said, it is enough now, O Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my father's. So this is what happens when the Jezebel spirit starts to attack you. It does it very subversively. And it wants to weaken you. So if you notice, like Elijah had just come from this huge victory, right? Amazing victory. And he got a death threat. Now, listen to this. He got a death threat from Jezebel. And as I was like meditating on this and praying over this, I was like, oh, well, it scared him so bad. He just wanted to give up. And that's why he went into the wilderness. He said, God, just kill me. He became suicidal after that. He wanted God to just take his life. I said, but wait a minute. It must not be death that scared him. So what did scare him? What scares people enough that they come into agreement with Jezebel and they lose their hope? So the more scary thing than death is isolation. So what he was really feeling threatened with was being isolated, being alone, being not supported, feeling like he was the only one out there in the world, and it caused him to get discouraged and want to give up. So it wasn't death that scared him, it was isolation. Why did Ahab marry Jezebel? Probably the same reason. He would feel isolated if he didn't have that. So sometimes the reason we do come into agreement with things that represent the Jezebel spirit in our lives is because we feel alone, we feel unsupported, we feel isolated, and that is when the enemy can tackle you. That is when the enemy starts to come in and want to, he knows your weaknesses. He knows your soft spots, and isolation is huge. That's why he always waits and watches to see if there is, like, if you look at a lion, like, he goes around like a roaring lion seeking whom to devour. Think about who a lion goes after first. He always goes after the one in the pack that is by himself. The lion never seeks prey that is surrounded with the rest of the pack. He seeks prey that is left behind, that is alone. So as soon as the enemy can make you feel isolated, if the enemy can make you feel alone, he's got you. So this is how he does this, right? Satan has no power to create. So Satan can't do anything to you. All he can do is work with your mind to get you to come into agreement with his plans over your life. So what does this look like? I want you to think about this. And here's how it works. First of all, there's a threat in the environment. Okay? There comes a threat. Elijah, the threat in the environment was, hey, I'm going to come and kill you because you did this thing. And then there's the fear of where that threat can lead. So let's look at this logically today. Bill comes in. You don't know how to pay it. There's fear of where that threat can lead. There's fear of like, well, what happened if I can't pay this time? Money doesn't come in. And then what happens to me? What happens to my kids? What happens to my house? Imagination of what that fear looks like. That's step number 3. First step is you see the threat in the environment. Second step, the fear of where that threat can lead. Third step, imagination of what that fear looks like. You start to like meditate on these images in your head. Number 4, belief in the reality of that imagination. Now you start coming into agreement with it. His plans over your life. And now 5, you have words that back up that reality that come out of your mouth. 6, there is behavior of seeking the resource to prevent or manage that reality. So now that reality scares you and it's trying to speak, oh my gosh, I can't pay my bills, I can't do that, or Johnny's sick and I don't know how he's ever going to get well, and the doctor's saying he's going to be like this the rest of his life. And so all these images come in. You start to have fear. You imagine what it's going to look like. You start to put belief in that imagination. You start to use your words to back up that reality. And then the behavior starts to seek a resource to prevent or manage that scary reality. How can I get more money? How can I fix Johnny? How can I fix this? And now, where does this lead us? Is we have committed treason. Now we're tied to another source. Our source is no longer God. It's tied to another source. That's how the spirit of Jezebel works. It's 6 steps. And it works so fluidly, so seamlessly, that all of a sudden you've committed treason against the kingdom of God. And you realize, and you wonder, how did I even get here? So that's how the spirit of Jezebel works. And it is to get you to plug into another source. That's all idolatry is plugging in to a source other than God. That's an idol. A false idol says this. Whoa, what happened here? What just happened? That's all idolatry is. It's really this right here, this idol I have can give me what God cannot. And that is how the spirit of Jezebel works to get you to be tied to another source. Now, think about Ahab. You'll be alone. You won't have a wife. You'll be alone if you don't have me. Elijah, you'll be alone because no one supports you and you're the only one who's trying to do this and no one likes you. Like, he always tries to get you isolated. If he can get you isolated, then you're more aware of the threat in that environment, right? So we have, excuse me, we had 2 fears in our life. The 2 biggest fears in our life is not fear of snakes or fear of the dark or fear of ghosts and goblins. The 2 fears that everyone has in their life is, number 1, not being loved, and number 2, not being enough. Now I want you to think about those 2 biggest fears that people have: not being loved, not being enough. The first is isolation. The second is insufficiency. I want you to think for a minute, how many times your stress, your anxiety, your fear, your confusion, your frustration, your overwhelm has centered around either, number one, feeling isolated, you're not supported, you're not cared for, you're not noticed, you're not seen, you're alone. Or number two, insufficiency. I'm not enough. I don't have enough. There's not enough. I guarantee all of your fears and all of your stresses, all of your concerns, the things that keep you up at night can be linked back to those two fears. Now, Jezebel, the spirit of Jezebel, uses those fears in order to manipulate people. I want you to think about it. So it says in 2 Kings 9, verse 22, when Joram saw Jehu, he asked, "Have you come in peace, Jehu?" "How can there be peace?" Jehu replied, "as long as all the idolatry and witchcraft of your mother Jezebel abound." So here we see the big, like, massive sin behind the spirit of Jezebel. It's idolatry and witchcraft. Actually, they're one and the same, really, because idolatry, again, is like this thing that I have exalted here, whatever it is, money, marriage, your kids, a relationship, a title. This will give me what God can't. That's what idolatry is. And then witchcraft is like, if there's two sides of a coin, idolatry is here, witchcraft is on the other side, because witchcraft is, now let me do what I need to do to get what I need from this idol. That's where we start with the works of the flesh. That's where we start to add stress and pain and toil to the equation of life. Is we think this will give me what God can't. Now let me do everything in my power to get what I can out of this source. Sorcery and witchcraft. And guys, if you really, really looked at your main pain points of stress and overwhelm and anxiety, you can see where where sorcery and witchcraft are playing a big part. Now, I know no one inside Mom Mastery University would ever say, "Oh yeah, I am definitely a witch. I definitely practice sorcery," which is why the spirit of Jezebel is so sneaky. It gets you in a position through those 6 steps that I laid out. It gets you in a position where now you are idol worshiping and committing witchcraft, and you don't even realize it. You think you're just stressed out. You think you're just overwhelmed. You think you're just working hard. You think you're just figuring it out. So we have to become so masterful in this area of discernment that we see what's really going on here. So I wanted to, like, this first part, we are just discussing that Jezebel spirit, what it is, how to recognize it, and now what we're going to do leading forward. Part 2, the next part, we're going to talk about what it looks like today. Because I want to share with you something that was, it's in Revelation, and it refers to Jezebel. So that spirit is still very much alive today. It's actually alive in churches today. It's alive in people today. And we're going to learn what it looks like today and what to do about it in part 2. And that's coming up next. Now, this is just the first part. So make sure you're plugging in to Mom Master University and you're doing the extended work. Whether we have more videos, workbooks, everything inside Mom Master University to really take this message and practice it and make it yours. Really get that 10x result from this message. So make sure, don't stop here. Go into Mom Master University and watch the extended work. It's called Do the Work, and I'll see you there. So what about you, Mama? Are you ready to enroll in the only school that will not only change your life, but also your legacy? Go to Mom Mastery University, where we dive deep into the biblical principles that give ordinary moms extraordinary results. Get enrolled today.